This world can be very limiting for those of us with physical disabilities or mobility issues, frustratingly so. And what is even more frustrating is it really doesn't have to be that way. There are a lot of small changes that can be done, little roadblocks that can be taken out of the way to help make the world a little bit bigger. And if you don't live with physical disability, there are small things that you can be doing in your community to help those of us who do live with it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, before I get too far into it, hello, my name is Nell, and I have things to say about disability, chronic illness, mental health, and sometimes current events. If that sounds like it's up your alley, then I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel. Come back every second Wednesday when I upload my regular videos. Keep that notification bell turned on so you know if I post something a little extra when something strikes my fancy. Let me know what you think of my videos in the comments section. I do try to respond to everything, even if it takes me a little while because I'm a bit of a sick puppy. And if you know of somebody who would be interested in anything I post, then feel free to tell them about me. This doesn't need to be our little secret. So let's get to it. So something that you can do when you are going to a cafe or a store or a venue, ask them where their accessible entrance is. Don't ask them if they have one. Ask them where it is. If they have a step out the front or anything like that, ask them where it is. This establishes an expectation that it's a normal thing to expect a place to have a wheelchair accessible entrance. They might have a service entrance out the back. They might have a ramp that they bring out the front. And if they don't, just mention something like, oh, that's a shame. I would have liked to recommend this place to more people. If you find somewhere that is accessible, then ask them where their accessible bathroom is. Not if, where. Now, again, this makes it clear that this is an expectation. A place should have an accessible bathroom. And the more people ask this, it will encourage people, it will encourage businesses to make sure that they're meeting these needs in the community. It's just going to be a normal thing. It's like when more places offered gluten-free and vegetarian options, it became, what are your vegetarian options? What are your gluten-free options? Not just if. If more people are asking about it, the need in the community becomes more apparent. This could also lead to more businesses, more property owners, even more councils offering more funding options to give accessibility upgrades if they know that that's what the community wants and needs. If you work in a location that has an accessible bathroom, there are a couple of things that I want you to check for me. The door, the mirror, and the bin. Check that the door opens outwards. I've been in accessible bathrooms where the door opens inwards, and that's a problem. Everything looked fine. It was great. And then I opened the door and noticed that the door, opening inwards, took up most of the room. I couldn't really get my wheelchair in. If I could get my wheelchair in, it was difficult to navigate closing the door when my wheelchair was also in the room. This is an issue. It would be very, very worthwhile to hire somebody to change the hinges and the door jambs and all of those things, because it means that somebody can actually use your accessible bathroom. Next is the mirror. Check the height of the mirror. This is the best way. Get a chair, sit down at the sink. Can you see yourself? If you can't, we have a problem. Again, I've been in a lot of accessible bathrooms where I roll up to the sink and I can't see myself. I put my hand up and I can see just my hand in the mirror, because clearly somebody finished up the bathroom and then stood up at the sink and hung a beautiful mirror in their own height, forgetting that this isn't for them. A lot of people who use accessible bathrooms are in wheelchairs, are in sitting heights. The best kind of mirror for accessible bathrooms are tall mirrors, so that you can see them in sitting heights and standing heights, because a lot of people who use accessible bathrooms will be standing, will be walking, but a lot of us will be sitting down. But an important thing to remember is that mirrors at sitting heights can be used by people who are standing. Mirrors at standing heights cannot be used by people who are sitting. Check the bin. Weird one, I know, and it's often overlooked for that reason. People just don't think about it. I have been in many accessible bathrooms where the bin is foot operated. It's got a foot pedal. I just want you to think about it. In a room for wheelchair users. Many of us use our wheelchairs because our legs don't work. Using something that requires the use of our legs and feet is not great. And sometimes I'll bring it up to the wait staff or the bar staff, and I'll just say, I've noticed an issue in the disability bathroom. It has a foot-operated bin. There's just a blank look. I say, I'm in a wheelchair because I can't really use my feet and legs. And then they light up and they go, oh my goodness. And they look mortified. They say, I'm going to get on that. And one place I went back to and they did change it. So just be aware of that. A swing top bin works perfectly. And if your workplace doesn't have an accessible bathroom or an accessible entrance, just ask why and ask if it would be possible to facilitate these things. I know a lot of cafes that have two small gendered bathrooms, and then others who have turned those two small bathrooms into one larger accessible bathroom, which is much more suitable, much more the way to go. Some places that have a small step out the front also have a metal ramp and a sign out front saying ramp available upon request. These ramps just cost a couple of $100, and that will pay itself back once people with disabilities know that there is a new wheelchair accessible venue in town, especially if it's somewhere that we've been looking at longingly and hoping that we could go to. Get to know the accessible venues in your town. Notice the access in places you go. When you go to the bathroom, you know where your bathroom is. Often the wheelchair accessible bathrooms are in a completely different area because they were thought of last, so they just have to turn an office space or a storage room into our bathroom. So get to know those too. If you have a friend who uses a wheelchair, this means that you'll know where to suggest for places to go. If you don't have a friend in a wheelchair, you might make one. Or one of your friends or yourself might start using a wheelchair either short-term or long-term. And this means that you will know off the top of your head the local places that you can go. It also will make you aware of how accessible your own area is. My friends have realized that there are major limitations in where we live, the amount of places that we have to rule out when we're going somewhere because they just don't have access. It will also help you realize how many places need a couple of those prompts that I mentioned at the start of the video. Now let's get a little closer to home. I don't expect my friends to live in homes that are completely wheelchair accessible. I would probably be a little frustrated if they did, because a lot of people with disabilities can't find wheelchair accessibility homes. So if somebody lives in a home that's perfectly kitted out for wheelchairs and they don't need them, that means that somebody who needs it isn't living there. But there are a lot of ways that you can make the house you live in more accessible for your wheelchair-using friends if you have a bit of money to spare, and we completely understand if you don't. If you have just a small step to get into your house, just up to 3 or 4 centimeters, you can buy a small rubber ramp from Bunnings. The one I'm showing here is just $52 and it's 3 centimeters high. Now that's just enough to smooth that little entrance for us to get in. And it's just make sure there's enough flat space in front of that ramp for a wheelchair to straighten up and enough area inside. If your step is larger, up to 6 inches, you could buy a folding metal ramp. The one I'm showing here is a meter long for $170. And if it's all right for a couple of inches, but if the step is a little bit higher, then you'd need a longer ramp. Now, again, you'd need plenty of room in front of it. If you have a large open bathroom that you think a wheelchair could get inside, you could consider getting an over-the-toilet frame. The one I'm showing here is $110. You can get ones of varying budgets and with different features, but that would help give somebody the stability that they might find otherwise and they might rely on otherwise with handrails. Simple things like that could make your home more inviting, more welcoming, and more accessible, as well as just making sure that there's a clean gangway, just tidying things up on the floor, moving a rug or something like that. Rugs and wheelchairs don't mix. These are some of the ways that you can make the world a little bit bigger for those of us who are in wheelchairs and who have mobility issues. We do need to work together to open up this silly old world. And you can help us, and we would love that. We want to get out and about. We want to enjoy things with you, and if we have your help, we can do that. That's all for this one. Thank you so much for listening and for learning with me. I'll see you in the next one. Bless.